today we're going to be talking about effect of ivermectin in cancer based on few years old information. The publication I'm going to be reviewing was provided to me by one of the Patreon members, and it's about 5 years old. It came out of China. But the reason why I wanted to specifically focus on this guy is because of the fact that the authors provide a very interesting warning, which I wanted to share with you. And basically gives you an idea, this review gives you an idea that we are still in the very recent stages or new stages of understanding how ivermectin might be of use or benefit in terms of cancer. All right, but it sounds extremely promising, and therefore hope is that we will definitely be investigating this further. So to give you an example, the authors right away from the beginning, they tell us that ivermectin appears to be doing the following. It can inhibit cancer proliferation, so basically expansion. It can inhibit metastasis, which is spreading of the cancer. It can inhibit angiogenesis, which is basically formation of new blood vessels to cancer, so that of course cancer can be fed nutrients and so on. It can inhibit cancer stem cells, which are the cells needed for cancer to develop in the first place. On top of that, it also appears to be able to kill cancer cells directly. It also seems to be restoring drug resistance of cancer cells. And finally, it appears to be working synergistically with other anti-cancer treatments. So that looks like a lot of benefits that can be ascribed to ivermectin. So there's a reason why so many people are getting excited about this. But as I mentioned, it's fairly nascent. It's still new information that we are learning. Now, ivermectin itself is not a new drug. It's been approved by FDA for human use in the 70s. I believe it was late 70s. I believe it was 1978. So when we, the public, were being trolled by our health authorities during the COVID pandemic that ivermectin is only a horse medicine. Well, not true. It's a very well known and extremely safe anti-parasitic drug that is one of the top most important human medications known of, right? So, and how important it is that this drug has the discoverers of this drug won a Nobel Prize in 2015 for the discovery of the drugs, which is very rare, actually. To give you an example, in the entire history of discovery of drugs being nominated for Nobel Prize for that very reason, that's rare. The first example was, I think it was 1923. It was for discovery of insulin, right? So for diabetes. Then next one was 1939 for the discovery of penicillin. Then in 1945, it was for discovery of first antibiotics. And then the next one was maybe something in the 1950s, 1952 for discovery of a drug that would cure tuberculosis, streptomycin. So it's very rare. So in history that a drug is so important to humanity that there is a Nobel Prize awarded for it. So that's basically some of the examples. I hope I remember the order correctly. It doesn't really matter though. My point is that it's very rare, and this drug has been extremely useful for treatment parasitic infections, but it also has shown other promises. For example, it has been shown promising effects for treatment of neurological conditions or asthma, and as well as even COVID. And I did a very big video on that, so check that out as well. So definitely, and it's very safe. The authors in this article mentioned that even up to, I think it was 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, and people were still not showing any toxic side effects of use of this drug. So the drug is also known to be extremely safe. So now, what about the cancer? The cancer itself, the story of cancer hasn't started with ivermectin till late 1990s. And it was, I believe they mentioned maybe 1996 when it was the very first time that we ever had any link between ivermectin and cancer. And that was that at the time was shown that it can help restore the multi-drug resistance of cancers. All right, so then what are some of the most promising effects of ivermectin? Let's start breaking this down. So number one is rock. Number one is the fact that it promotes programmed cell death. That's called apoptosis. Basically, apoptosis means is that there's a genetic program can be turned on that will tell the cells to commit suicide. All right, so that's in a nutshell apoptosis, and basically that ivermectin appears to be able to stimulate apoptosis in cancer cells. Now, what's interesting is that there's different types of death that ivermectin can be induced. Apoptosis is one of them. There's another one that we're going to talk about right away, autophagy, and they can be turned on in different cancers. So in terms of apoptosis seems to be turned on in the cancers that so far that has been discovered. It was in colon cancers, in ovarian cancers, kidney cell carcinoma, leukemia, and glioblastomas. Okay, so those are the ones where apoptosis was shown to work, and the way that it appears that ivermectin turns on apoptosis is that it changes the membrane potential of mitochondria. Now check out one of my past videos on explaining the membrane potential of mitochondria. Basically, mitochondria, like everything in your body, is electrically charged. It has an electric charge. Mitochondria has its own specific electric charge. And if you change that electric charge, you can change the mitochondria from being healthy to unhealthy. Once that happens, and the membrane potential changes of mitochondria, it can lead to release of this molecule from inside the mitochondria called cytochrome C. Fell through the creek. And man, it's a little too warm to walk along the river beds. But don't worry, there's still solid ice. It's just got really warm, so the top layer is soft. And basically, check out another video where I explain the cytochrome, see how it leads to apoptosis. Basically, ivermectin also helps to release that cytochrome C from inside mitochondria. So this is how ivermectin can promote apoptosis. Now, there's another way to stimulate cell death, and this is where the warning comes in, because ivermectin can induce autophagy. Now, this is autophagy. I did a video recently on autophagy in terms of how autophagy can be helpful in protecting your well-being of your mitochondria, and how you could be using that as a form of spike protein detox. So check that out. But that's why I was also very much interested in this publication, because of this warning. They said, watch out, because when it comes to cancers, autophagy might be like a double-edged sword. So now let's explain that. By the way, autophagy, one of the most powerful ways of turning on autophagy is via fasting, right? And I did a series of videos on cancer, the theory that cancer is a metabolic disease as opposed to genetic disease. And one of the ways to deal with cancer would be through working against the damaged mitochondria and cancer cells. And one of those ways to do that, to achieve that, is through fasting. So here is a warning, potentially, as to what we need to be watching out for. Okay, so look, science can always provide a type theories or hypothesis, but it's always additional complexities that can be found. So why is it a problem potentially? Now, first of all, what is autophagy? Autophagy is a programmed way of removing damaged contents of inside your cells. That can include damaged organelles. So if your mitochondria becomes damaged, it can be targeted for destruction. So an autophagy will take care of that. So autophagy basically will remove anything that your cell signals in order to be removed. Okay, so check out the past video to learn more about that. Basically, you just you package these contents in a specific bubble within a cell, and then you destroy inside of the contents. And so that what autophagy will do, it's very, very beneficial for you. It's known that autophagy, due to fasting, can even extend the lifespan of an individual. But why is it a double-edged sword? Is because they mention is, look, autophagy could potentially train cancer cells in order to survive under conditions of low nutrients, because autophagy is also is activated by fasting. That's a condition of low nutrients, and that's basically when stuff inside your cells is being recycled to make sure that cell can live, and that could allow cancer cells to survive under low nutrients conditions, which can be common in a cancer microenvironment. Number one. Number two, it could also help cancers survive some of the effects of chemotherapy or radiation. The purpose of chemotherapy and radiation is to damage cancer cells enough that cancer cells will have no choice but to die. But autophagy could help survive the cancer. So that's a warning. This is why I mention which cancers, for example, apoptosis works in, and I'll tell you the ones where the autophagy works in killing cancer cells has been observed in some type of cancers, and that was melanoma, glioma, and breast cancers. Okay, but how can autophagy help fight cancers? Is that if you have too much of it as well, you could reduce the contents of the cancer cells so much that the cancer will eventually die. So this is why it's a double-edged sword, because potentially in some environments, autophagy could potentially help cancer grow, but in other environments, depending on how much autophagy you have, it could also end up killing cancer cells. Okay, so that's the warning that I wanted to let you know, because again, I've been talking about fasting a lot. This is a concept that has been suggested, and a specific diet has been suggested for dealing with cancer, but this could be one issue to watch out for. Another issue is check out my past video on cholesterol crystals, because a diet that has been suggested that removes carbohydrate could lead to a diet that is very rich in fats, and that could introduce cholesterol as well. So check that out, because you could see nothing is perfect, and there's never a silver bullet when it comes to dealing with cancer. So that was my reason why I wanted to introduce it. Now, how does it work in terms of autophagy? How does ivermectin induce autophagy? And the way it does it is that ivermectin appears to be inhibiting a specific machinery called mammalian target of rapamycin, now, which I refer to as mTOR. Now, what is mTOR? It's a sensor of nutrients. It can recognize whether there's a lot of sugar or lack of sugar or proteins. And if there is a lot of nutrients, then this sensor, mTOR, mammalian target rapamycin, can be turned on. And when it's turned on, it will inhibit autophagy. Now, because ivermectin inhibits it, then that means it activates autophagy, okay? And the way it does it is interesting. It actually attaches these molecules on a protein called PAC1 and targets it for degradation via autophagy. And once that protein is degraded, it prevents another protein from being activated, which would eventually activate that mammalian target of rapamycin. So indirectly, ivermectin appears to be inhibiting that mammalian target of rapamycin. So I wanted to give you some mechanism that I believe at the moment, at least, of how ivermectin might be working in cancer. So that's the warning. Okay, let's move forward. The next one is ivermectin could be inhibiting cancer stem cells. Now, what are cancer stem cells? Well, they're like stem cells, which means they have the power to proliferate. They can basically divide uncontrollably to whatever amount of cells, right? So they have that capability of a great expansion, and they can expand in any direction, meaning they can become any cell they want. Okay, so that's great if you say you're building a new organ, but for cancer, it's not good, because you can see how these these elements are extremely powerful for developing cancer. And in fact, you need cancer stem cells to develop cancer. Cancer stem cells, because they have these powers, they can survive and or withstand treatment such as radiation or chemotherapy. And then once the environment is safe and good, they can start expanding again and they can create a new tumor, basically. And this is basically number one reason, or why really the reason why you have recurrence in cancer patients after treatment, is because of those stem cells. So you can appreciate now how ivermectin targeting it could be of value. And ivermectin appears to be able to target cancer stem cells specifically over other cells around. So that's one of those magic tricks of ivermectin, apparently. So that's cancer stem cells. That's the value of that. And then the last one that we're going to talk about is the capacity of ivermectin to, second to last, sorry, this is to reduce multi-drug resistance. Now, what is multi-drug resistance? We have proteins that can transport drugs, move them around, and you can take a drug and you're hoping it will work against you for cancer, but your body will not allow it to even target the cancer that well. And there are proteins that can basically prevent from the drug from being able to do its proper work. Ivermectin apparently has been shown in many types of cancer to prevent that by targeting these proteins. Okay, so then it helps to reduce that drug resistance. Now, drug resistance is again, that would be the number one reason for treatment failure of cancer cells. So you can see how beneficial that is. And the last one that we'll mention as well is the fact that ivermectin also appears to be working extremely well in combination with other drugs. So it has a synergistic effect with other cancer medications. And basically, one example that I thought was really interesting, the authors talked about breast cancer. By the way, they mentioned an interesting statistics. They mentioned that breast cancer is being diagnosed globally every 18 seconds, which is crazy. Imagine like how many cancers would have been diagnosed in a time span of this video that you've been watching, right? So then imagine how often that is. But they also mentioned triple negative breast cancer cells. Those are cancer cells that are missing three different types of receptors, which makes these cancer cells especially dangerous with very poor prognosis. And the reason why I bring it up is because ivermectin appears to be able to increase sensitivity of such cancers towards estrogen specific type of treatment. I think it was believed tamoxifen or something like that, right? So anyway, ivermectin introduces sensitivity for these type of cancers. So you can see how beneficial that could be. That's just one example. The authors provided a very wide list of potential drugs that could be working synergistically with ivermectin. And the authors conclude that ivermectin very likely will be a new and novel cancer treatment as well. By the way, I remember when I mentioned that ivermectin targets that PAC1 protein, that if it's targeted, then it prevents the activation of that mammalian target of rapamycin. Well, that's a very new and exciting treatment for cancers that at least 5 years ago people were getting excited about. And the advantage of ivermectin is that it seems to be PAC1 inhibitor and it's extremely safe drug, right? So again, just to bring that up. Now, some of the problems with ivermectin that we still have at the moment, remember, this is 5 years ago, so this might have changed a bit, is number one, they mentioned it's still not exactly known what are the exact targets of ivermectin inside cancer cells. So that's issue number one. Another one is that we need to figure out which cancer cells would be targeted by ivermectin via autophagy versus apoptosis. And the reason why is because I told you I didn't mention this actually. autophagy and apoptosis, they actually talk to each other. These two events can cross talk with one another, and basically when you have apoptosis happening, then you're not likely to have autophagy, and if you have autophagy happening, you're not likely to have apoptosis. And that's why you need to figure out actually which cancer cells specifically, which types of cancers are targeted by one versus the other. Okay, so that still has to be worked out. And another one that they mention is that while we need to figure out what the mechanisms are, and that also we need to figure out the exact plans of treatment for all other drugs that we'd be using, that ivermectin could be used synergistically with other medications. So there's still a lot to be worked out. At the time of writing, they mentioned there was no clinical trials for cancer using ivermectin, but I can tell you there is one right now. I've seen one that was recruiting right now, and it's for use of ivermectin in combination with another drug against that triple negative breast cancer. So that's actually good news. It means we are finally starting to explore this area. It seems that small pieces of scientific evidence have accumulated enough to now push the medicine in that direction to, hey, let's start exploring it. So that's very, very good news. And the authors conclude this review by stating that most likely ivermectin will be an effective treatment for cancer down the road once we figured out all of the tiny details. All right, that's it for now. I'm going to wrap it up. I just wanted to let you know that check out my Patreon account as well. All my videos that go to YouTube are pre-screened on Patreon account first, and if you're a paying member, you will be able to see all of them. And on top of that, you get to vote which videos end up on YouTube, and you have other perks as well, such as seeing all of the video notes that I make and so on. So if that's of interest to you, please support me that way. That's a great way for me to grow the channel and to make sure I grow the channel smartly with your input on YouTube. And also more and more of the knowledge that I'm focusing on comes also via suggestions of my Patreon members. All right, so please check that out, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.